Hi everyone! Thank you so much for joining me for today's Read Aloud. And today's book is titled Moon's First Friends, One Giant Leap for Friendship. Words by Susanna Leonard Hill. Pictures by Elisa Paganelli. So here is our book for today. And before we get started, I want you to think about everything you know about the moon. The moon goes through its different phases. My personal favorite moon phase is the crescent. I think it's just so uniquely shaped. So close your eyes and picture the different ways you see the moon. What color is the moon? Where do you see the moon? What time of day and night do you see the moon? Just keep thinking about the moon for a second. Everything you know about the moon. All right, open them. Now I want you to take everything you know and you think you know about the moon, and I want you to think about it as we read our book, Moon's First Friends. As we read, I want you to pay special attention to the setting of our book because we're going to have a fun activity using the setting of our book after our read aloud. So, without further ado, Moon's First Friends, One Giant Leap for Friendship. The moon was queen of the night sky. She was so bright that everything she touched glowed with silver light. But after many, many years had passed, she was lonely. If only someone would visit me, she said. Hello down there, she called to the lumbering dinosaurs. If you come up here, I won't feel so heavy. You'll feel lighter than air. But the dinosaurs stayed where they were. Under the moon's watchful eye, the surface of the earth changed. The moon saw glorious new creatures come and go. Saber-toothed tigers, mastodons, woolly mammoths, dodo birds, whales, rhinoceroses, and elephants, but they all stayed earthbound and rarely looked up to her in the night sky. But then she saw something new. At night, people conjured fires like tiny stars. There are millions of stars for you up here, she offered. But the people stayed where they were. The moon watched as she circled and circled the earth. On the wide sweep of the Sahara, the Egyptians built stone pyramids that towered toward the sky. They're trying to reach me, the moon marveled. But though the pyramids were mighty, they came nowhere near high enough to reach the moon. Perhaps they didn't see her. She spun and twirled from new moon to majestic silver pearl and back again, showing off for the people below. But no one came. She watched as down on earth people came up with all kinds of ways to get from one place to another, but they did not sail or drive or cycle or float to the moon. Then, on a windy day in North Carolina, the first airplane flew above a beach. You're doing great, encouraged the moon. You just need to fly a little higher. But people on Earth only traveled to visit one another. Was it possible they didn't know she was there? At high noon, the moon slipped purposefully between the earth and the sun, blocking all the daylight. Then she slid aside again, allowing the sun to shine through. No one could have missed that, she thought. But still, no one ventured away from Earth. Would she ever have a visitor? Just when the moon was losing hope, the people on Earth began to experiment with rockets, and the moon watched with great interest. But the humans still had a lot to learn. One day, the moon's hope soared. A chimpanzee in a mercury capsule rocketed toward her. A visitor! At last! But alas, he returned to Earth without reaching her. And then, one hot July day, a tremendous rocket stood upon a launch pad with two small spaceships perched on top. The countdown began. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Lift off! At 30 stories high and weighing 6 million pounds, the rocket rose into the air amid an explosion of flames. Slowly at first, and then faster, and then faster! The rocket fell away in stages, but the two spaceships hurtled toward the moon. They're coming, the moon said. They're actually coming! One of the spaceships remained at a distance, circling, but the other came closer, until at last its spindle legs touched down. Welcome, she greeted the men who emerged from the ship. The astronauts walked across her surface with great bounding steps that made her dust bloom. They seemed delighted with how far they could travel with each stride. The moon gave them gifts of moon rocks and dust. Take these back to Earth, she said. Even though I can't visit you, a part of me will be there. The men left her a present in return, a handsome plaque that read, Here men from the planet Earth first set foot upon the moon, July 1969 AD. We came in peace for all mankind. They also left her a beautiful flag with red and white stripes and a scattering of white stars on a blue background. Too soon, the astronauts had to leave. Goodbye, the moon said as their ships floated away into the starry distance. Come back any time. She sighed with happiness. At last, someone had visited. And now she had hope that it would happen again and again. Maybe one day you will visit her. Mission Moon. NASA, National Aeronautics and Space Administration, was established July 29, 1958, and became operational October 1st, 1958. NASA is part of the U.S. government and is in charge of science and technology related to the airplanes and space. NASA makes satellites, sends probes into space, studies the solar system, explores planets and asteroids, and many other things. You probably know NASA best for its space program, which sends spacecrafts and people into space. Since its beginning, NASA has had many space flight programs, including Project Mercury, Project Apollo, and the International Space Station, and more. Out of this world facts. It takes about 1 month, 29 and a half days, for the moon to get all the way around Earth. The moon does not give off light the way the sun does. What we see as moon glow is actually the reflected light of the sun. Earth's moon is the 5th largest one in our solar system. The moon is much smaller than the Earth, about 1/4 the Earth's size. The moon is only 2,159 miles across from one side to the other, diameter, with a circumference of 6,783.5 miles. Earth's diameter is 7,926 miles. The moon has no air, no weather, and no life, although water was discovered on the moon in 2009. And so here are the phases of the moon that I mentioned earlier. So we have new moon, waxing crescent, first quarter, waxing gibbous, full moon, waning gibbous, last quarter, and waning crescent. The Apollo 11 voyage. On May 25, 1961, President John F. Kennedy went to Congress with a very special goal. American astronauts were going to visit the moon in less than 10 years. Although many people thought it couldn't be done, Congress liked the idea so much that they approved a budget of more than $25 billion. That's a lot of money. NASA launched the Apollo 11 program with the goal of landing Americans on the moon, taking samples, photos, and data, and then returning home safely. The program was challenging, and NASA estimated that it took over 400,000 engineers, scientists, and technicians to make the moon landing possible. Finally, on July 16, 1969, after more than 8 years of training, planning, and preparation, NASA launched the Saturn V rocket from Cape Kennedy. Piloted by astronauts Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins, Saturn V flew through space for more than 3 days. On July 20th, 1969, more than 530 million people listened as Neil Armstrong became the first man to set foot on the moon, saying, "One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind." After almost 22 hours on the moon's surface, Apollo 11 safely returned to Earth. So here we have photos of the landing crew. We have Buzz Aldrin with a photo of the American flag on the moon. All across the pages, we have what's called a timeline. The spacesuit. Space is a beautiful place, but if you want to go there, you'll need the right clothes. In space, it's very, very cold. There isn't any sound, and there's no air. NASA designed special suits to keep their astronauts safe on their way to visit the moon. For the Apollo 11 mission, each suit was specifically made for the astronauts, and each astronaut had 3 different suits. At $2 million each, that's quite an expensive wardrobe. An astronaut's suit has oxygen tanks to let them breathe in space, radios to communicate with each other, and even to Earth, and protective gear to keep them safe while they travel through space. The rocket. Have you ever blown up a balloon and then let the air out? What happens? The air shoots out of the opening and the balloon shoots off in the other direction. Well, rockets work pretty much the same way. When a rocket is launched, its engines fire and exhaust gases blow out at high speed, pushing the rocket up and away. The Saturn V rocket was built for the Apollo 11 mission, But in order to visit the moon, the rocket had to first break free of Earth's gravity. The Earth's gravity is strong and likes to keep things on the ground. So then you have the diagram of the astronaut's suit with labels pointing at things like the utility pocket, the lunar boot, a pressure helmet, and the astronaut says hi. So remember on this page we talked about the Earth's gravity is strong and likes to keep things on the ground. Thank goodness, or else you wouldn't be able to walk without floating off into the air. To escape Earth's gravity, a rocket needs engines strong enough to go almost 18,000 miles per hour. Going that fast requires a lot of fuel, so the Saturn V rocket was built with 3 stages that held the fuel. In total, the rocket was made of 5 main pieces: 3 fuel stages, the instrument unit, and the command/service module, and the lunar module. So then it goes into detail about the stages of the moon landing. And then I'm going to read this paragraph about the long trip home. After the astronauts completed their mission on the moon, it was time to say goodbye, but getting home was a mission in itself. They climbed back into their lunar module and used its tiny rockets to lift free of the moon's surface. Once back in orbit, they reconnected with the command/service module, which they had left behind with their fellow astronaut Michael Collins. After traveling back through space for more than 4 days, they finally re-entered Earth's atmosphere and splashed down safely into the ocean. All their friends from NASA were eagerly waiting to hear everything about the moon. So then we have a picture of the rocket. And that is the end of our book, Moon's First Friends. So, at the beginning of this read aloud, I talked about how I wanted you to think about the setting. And the setting in this book changes. We see different parts of the moon. We see different periods in time. So, I want you to take what you thought was the most interesting setting, and I want you to draw it for yourself. I want you to whip out those artistic skills. You can draw this with a piece of paper and a pencil. You can get out markers, crayons, whatever you would like. And I want you to use those artistic abilities to draw your favorite setting from this book. And once you're done drawing your favorite setting, I want you to think about, so what was happening at this point in the book? What was happening in this setting of the book? Keep that locked in your brain and get ready to draw. If you do decide to do the extension task, thank you so much for working hard. Otherwise, thank you all so much for listening to this story. It was a great privilege to share it with you, and I hope I get to hear and see from you all again. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Bye.